Sir Keir Starmer has intensified his push for discipline inside the Labour government, delivering a pointed warning to his cabinet to stop talking about ourselves after more than a week of damaging leaks, anonymous briefings, and escalating speculation about internal divisions. In a government that came to power promising unity, competence, and stability, the sudden eruption of a Labour briefing war has forced Starmer into crisis management mode at a politically sensitive moment, with the budget only days away and public expectations riding high on promises of economic renewal. According to senior insider accounts of the cabinet meeting at number 10, Starmer's tone was more severe than usual. He reminded ministers that voters did not elect a government to obsess over internal drama, but to deliver meaningful change on the economy, public services, and national security. He stressed that the spectacle of cabinet ministers sniping at each other, or appearing to, had created distractions that risk overshadowing the government's wider mission. Multiple sources described the Prime Minister as visibly frustrated, signaling the seriousness with which he views the political damage caused by the recent leaks. The turmoil began when reports emerged claiming that Health Secretary Wes Streeting was plotting a potential leadership challenge against Starmer. These briefings, allegedly coming from staff close to Downing Street, portrayed Streeting as ambitious, disloyal, and preparing ground for a future bid. Streeting was forced to issue a blunt denial, dismissing the rumors as absurd, toxic, and deeply harmful to the government. He stated that he had no intention of undermining Starmer and called for those responsible for the anonymous attacks to be identified and held accountable. Starmer later defended Streeting in public, describing him as doing an excellent job, insisting that he had not approved or encouraged any negative briefings against members of his team. This only raised more questions about who inside Downing Street was orchestrating the leaks. Senior Labour figures said the episode had exposed a culture of whispering that the Prime Minister is desperate to eradicate before it destabilizes the government further. Behind closed doors, Starmer has now launched an internal probe to track down the source of the briefings. Cabinet ministers were told that leaking, briefing, and political point scoring within the team is completely unacceptable and will no longer be tolerated, particularly during such a critical period of policymaking. According to insiders, Starmer is prepared to dismiss anyone found responsible, a sentiment echoed by senior Labour Minister Ed Miliband, who said he fully expected Starmer to sack the individual behind the attacks if they were identified. Some ministers have privately expressed fears that the investigation will expose long-running rivalries within the party, while others view the inquiry as necessary to re-establish order at the heart of government. The timing of this political drama could not be more sensitive. With the upcoming budget expected to lay out Labour's long-term strategy for fiscal repair, investment, and public service rebuilding, any hint of instability risks undermining the government's economic credibility. Leaks about possible budget decisions, including speculation about tax adjustments, spending priorities, and planned reforms, have already raised concerns within number 10 that internal chaos is clouding the government's economic message. Starmer told ministers that the budget represents not just a fiscal announcement, but a defining moment for the Labour government's identity. He argued that internal gossip and political maneuvering must not distract from the priority of delivering tangible improvements for workers, families, and businesses. According to those present, his message was straightforward. We were elected to deliver change, not to talk about ourselves. In wider political circles, analysts say the crisis reveals the growing pains of a party transitioning from opposition to government. After years of operating within a fragmented political landscape, Labour's senior team is still adjusting to the demands of governing, managing large departments, balancing competing egos, and maintaining collective discipline. Some point out that the speed with which the briefing war erupted suggests deeper tensions that may have been simmering for months. Others note that Starmer has been under mounting pressure to demonstrate tighter command of his team, particularly as expectations for rapid results grow among the public and the media. Polling in recent weeks shows a mixture of optimism about Labour's potential but impatience about the pace of visible change, creating an environment in which internal conflict becomes instantly magnified. Outside the cabinet, Labour MPs have been divided in their response to the drama. Some MPs blame the Downing Street operation itself, claiming it has become too factional and insular. Others have dismissed the episode as overblown, arguing that every government deals with occasional leaks and disagreements. Several MPs on the party's left have expressed concern that Starmer's crackdown on internal discipline could be used selectively against critics, while more centrist MPs insist that discipline is essential to avoid a repeat of past Labour divisions that cost the party elections. The political risks for Starmer are real. Prolonged stories about internal chaos could weaken trust in the government's ability to manage the economy, especially during the lead-up to the budget. Meanwhile, the public reaction has been a mix of frustration and skepticism. Voters who backed Labour for stability are expressing concern that the government appears distracted by internal politics at a time when the cost of living crisis, NHS waiting lists, housing shortages, and local council funding remain major national concerns. Social media conversations around the Labour briefing war have erupted across platforms, with many calling for Starmer to take firm action, end the anonymous attacks, and restore focus on policy delivery. Others argue that the situation has been exaggerated by political opponents and the media. Still, the consensus is that Starmer must now demonstrate strong leadership to regain control of the narrative. In response to the reprimand, ministers have moved publicly to show unity. Several cabinet members voiced strong support for the Prime Minister's leadership, insisting the government remains united in its mission. Allies of Streeting and Starmer alike have attempted to downplay tensions, saying the team is committed to pulling in the same direction. However, behind the scenes, the atmosphere remains tense as the investigation progresses. Multiple advisors and communications officials are being questioned, and the possibility of a public dismissal looms if clear evidence is found. The broader question now facing the government is whether this episode will mark a turning point for Labour discipline or whether it signals deeper internal fractures. Some strategists believe Starmer can use this moment to reassert authority, tighten operational structures inside Downing Street, and send a clear message that the era of factional politics is over. Others warn that if the leaker is not found, or if further leaks occur, it may embolden critics and damage Starmer's grip on power. The stakes are high. Any perception of weakness or internal chaos could feed narratives pushed by opposition parties that Labour is not ready to govern effectively. As the budget approaches, Starmer is determined to shift the focus back to the economy, growth, and public service reform. He has urged departments to accelerate key announcements, finalize spending decisions, and prepare for a post-budget campaign emphasizing stability, unity, and delivery. The Prime Minister is betting that successful economic messaging will overshadow the briefing drama and restore confidence within the party and the country. For now, though, the shadow of the leaks continues to loom over Number 10, and Starmer's demand that his cabinet stop talking about ourselves has become the central message of a government eager to move past internal turmoil and prove it can deliver the change it promised. Whether this moment becomes a brief misstep or an early sign of deeper internal problems will depend on what happens next. If the investigation identifies and removes the leaker, Starmer could emerge stronger, signaling a zero-tolerance approach to internal sabotage. If no culprit is found, or if more damaging leaks emerge, the government could face renewed questions about discipline, loyalty, and leadership. For now, Starmer's priority is clear: bring the focus back to the public, restore unity, deliver the budget, and draw a firm line under the Labour briefing war that has consumed the political narrative for days. In essence, Starmer's warning to his cabinet is both a plea and a declaration. Labour must stop talking about itself and start proving it can govern.